Welcome to Life Simplified. Life throws a lot at us, and let's be honest, even we, your hosts, are feeling a bit overwhelmed. That's why we're taking our own advice this month. We're hitting pause, prioritizing self-care, and giving ourselves the reset we all need. But don't worry, while we take this breather, we've lined up something special for you. Over the next few weeks, we'll be replaying our top 5 episodes of all time. Episodes that, coincidentally, are all about resets. We'll be back in May, refreshed and ready for Mental Health Awareness Month, with brand new episodes to inspire, support, and reset with you. Until then, join us for a walk down memory lane as we revisit these listener favorites.
Sometimes life is messy. Have you ever wished you could refocus your mind, home, relationships, and work life? Join us as we use research-based information to make practical changes and simplify life. This is Life Simplified.
Welcome back to Life Simplified. This month, we are talking all about a reset. And today is our reset on relationships. This is not necessarily romantic relationships. We have relationships with lots of different people. We have friendships, we have colleagues, we have partners, we have maybe our children, our family members. So whatever relationship that you're thinking about as we're going through here, you can apply this information. To get us started, I'm going to open it up with a question for our group. What do you think of when you hear the word wellness?
Okay, so when I hear the word wellness, I immediately go to health. So what is healthy? And I think the inner therapist in me goes to a holistic, like what is healthy. And I'm not just thinking like my physical health, thinking my mental health, my emotional health, my relationship health. And then the mom in me immediately goes to like when you take your children for their checkups and there's the well child area and the sick child area. And it's just like that distinction in your brain, like wellness means like I'm good. I'm in a good place.
Yeah, that resonates with me, with my young son, like the side of wellness and sick, because he's had some sickness, with all the colds and flu and different things that go around during the winter months. So I think like everybody's healthy, they're fed, we're warm, just like we're well.
Yeah.
That's kind of what my mind goes to when you're thinking about just wellness in general.
I guess mine also goes straight to far as about your health or your physical health or, so my kids are healthy. Just like what you said, Tiffany and Amanda, I immediately go to far as the physical fitness or sick or well.
Okay.
Is that the right answer?
There's no wrong answer.
Okay.
There's not a wrong answer. You all did beautifully.
I thought maybe it was a trick question.
Yeah, so did I. So I thought you were setting us up for failure. But.
Oh, well, I was not setting you up for failure. However, I did have something in my mind and wondered where we were going to go with it. So we've all given our definitions of wellness. And generally speaking, we often think of wellness as physical health. Are we being physically active? Are we eating nutritious foods? Do we feel well? We don't always include that emotional, intellectual, the social, spiritual, vocational, financial, and environmental dimensions. Today, we're going to talk specifically about social wellness. So that's where those relationships come in. I bet you didn't know where I was going with all this wellness talk when I said we're talking about relationships, resetting relationships. So we're focusing on social wellness today. Social wellness is the quality of our relationships. So are our relationships healthy? Once again, pick a relationship in your life and work through this with us. to make any type of change, we have to first look at where we are. So does everybody have their relationship in mind? We all thinking about it?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I hope.
Okay. So these are questions to think about in your mind. We're not going to answer these out loud. So not putting anybody on the spot. Not going to be like, okay, everyone tell me what you're doing wrong.
Because sometimes that's what we think about.
Yeah,
Like, wait a minute.
exactly.
I'm totally failing at this.
No.
But that's okay if we are, right?
Exactly. It's
'Cause
okay.
that's why we're here and talking
Exactly. We can't make a change if we don't know what needs to change. And we're all about resetting. So let's go. Socially speaking, what gives you energy? What drains your energy? In our self-care episode, we talked about what fuels us, what makes us feel like we're doing something for ourselves, what is really pumping us up. So in your mind, think about what that is socially. Then think about what you currently enjoy about your social life. What is going well and what can be improved?
So I totally think you're just like, you're not doing these things well because it resonates with me. And not that you're trying to, but
No, that's not my goal at all.
I know, but and so I'm thinking about the phase of life that I'm in and like what I'm doing well. And your question of like, what's your social life look like? And I'm like, Friday night, I'm on the couch, not really socializing, I guess. But I have a young son, and so that's my phase right now. And it's been hard for me to adjust to that, from going from doing whatever to that. But that's definitely something I think that comes to my mind when I think, you know what, I need to be more mindful and reset. I think that's good to think about.
Yes. And that's what these questions are for. They're not to make us feel guilty. We talked about guilt during self-care. So it's not to make us feel guilty. It's just to think about it. These really spoke to me as I was going through and looking up information for this topic. And so that's why we're talking about them, because I need this too. We've been talking from the beginning that we're real people and we use this information. So this is not at all to make anyone feel, ugh, this is not good.
But that means we need it though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm stuck on the energy question. So like my brain is like, oh, what gives you energy? What drains your energy? And I think so for me, because I'm all into personality stuff. And so I'm like equally split introvert, extrovert. And so in what we do every day, because we're teaching people, we're in front of groups and different things, teaching out loud, I feel like I have to be on. Like that's that extrovert, and I get to use that, and people are like, oh yeah, you're so great at that. But sometimes I get home and I'm like exhausted, like I'm just kind of done, and the introvert in me like kicks in. And so sometimes like socially, it's super hard for me to want to go out and be in a group because my energy is zapped. And so at that point I'm like, oh, I need some time alone so that I can refuel that energy. I need that time out, that quiet time. So yeah, energy is an interesting concept when you're thinking about how we're doing socially, because, knowing where you get that from can be important, because if we're draining it all the time in our everyday life, it can be really hard to have the desire to go out and fuel that social aspect of your life.
Boy, you hit that right on.
I know. That's what I'm like, Ashley, why are
I'm
you
telling
doing
you.
this
I think he was reading my mind, Tiffany. I'm just saying.
I feel it in my pores, right? It's like it's in my bones.
Some days you just don't. I just want to stay in bed with the covers over my head because I don't want to, be social with anybody just because I've had so many interactions or just struggling for that day, So you definitely said a lot right there with that for me too. So.
Yes, and I think that is the nature of the work that we do. And some of the listeners may be feeling that on that level. And some of you may be saying, no, I'm ready to get out in there. So,
But I'll just throw it out there. Sometimes it ain't even work that drains me. Going to Walmart sometimes drains me. And it's like, I don't want to get back out. I don't want to go anywhere, So it doesn't necessarily have to be work that drains you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And I think too, if we think about it, like I feel drained now and need that quiet time. But if you'd asked me this same thing back during the pandemic, when we were all working from home, like, oh my goodness, I needed people. Like I needed that social aspect because, the extrovert in me was very like sad and screaming, like, come talk to me, have an adult conversation. Yeah.
I'm tired of looking at a face on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I
depending
need
on what
some
you do.
real interaction. Yeah.
Right.
I forgot what people looked like.
Exactly. So I think it's, it's that ebbs and flows as well, probably.
For sure.
Getting up and putting on regular clothes instead of staying in pajamas all day too helps with that.
That does help. So I hope our listeners are also thinking about what gives them energy socially and what drains them. And then think about the people in your life, your circle of people, whoever that may be. Are you surrounded by people, and they may not be right next to you, but do you have people in your life that you can fully trust and who know who you are and love you for it? Are you able to spend time, whatever that time may look like? It may be a text here and there. It may be sending them a funny meme. But do you spend time with friends and family? Do you have positive and rewarding relationships? And are you building social activity into your calendar? We may all need to slap our hands as we're looking at each other around the room like,
What's
we,
that?
we have a calendar. Are we building social activity into it?
No. Just be on. I'll be honest. No.
I'm building my
on that
kids'
one.
social activity into it. That's
Even though I'm in a different stage than you all with my children, I'm still, doing things for them and building that in my calendar. So, and that's okay. And that's okay if you don't also.
Yeah, because there may be some people, as you said, that are listening that, they're social butterflies, and before kids and family, that's what I did. Like I made plans every weekend and I was always gone, and that's fine. Like, and I think you hit it, like it's your phase and where you're at and what works best for you. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Yes, we're all different, and we talked about that a lot in our self-care episode. So if you have not listened to that, scooch on back and listen to that one because it's a good one. All right, so we all sat here and we were like, oh, that hurt. That didn't feel good. Now you're going to think of something, socially speaking, that you do well.
Well, I guess several years ago when my husband and I, as far as I'm going to do it as a family aspect, decided that we needed to have more time together because, we get in that life, fast lane with our kids and everything revolves around them. And then sometimes your other relationships struggle, And so when we had our 10-year wedding anniversary, we decided then, and I think I even discussed it in our very first podcast. So like Ashley said, go back and listen to it. But we decided that every Saturday morning, if he wasn't working or if I wasn't working, we was going for breakfast. We was going to take an hour or two of our morning, because our kids are usually still sleeping, to go and have breakfast together, and just, I think we do that well. I fell on a lot of other aspects of our life when it comes to other family or friends, but we really try to make sure that we have that time together.
And I love that. Joni and I have talked about that tradition, if you will say, many times. And I just love that that is something that you're able to do together and really enjoy that time.
Yes. I'm very thankful for that time too.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's great. For me, thinking, my immediate family. So I live 4 hours from my family. So I've had to be more mindful of and more aware of those relationships that you were talking about. So I think doing well is, and I'm sure the the pandemic probably helped with this too, because we didn't travel a lot. We usually try to go once a month and visit, and sometimes, it doesn't happen. But I try to speak, either call like my mother or text. My grandmother texts. And so it's great to she'll just be like, how are you doing? And at least like once a week. So just being mindful of like reaching out to them. And then my sister and I have nephews, we'll FaceTime. And so just communicating, not as in like spending time together, but just using the technology that we have to connect with people that, I'm 4 hours away, but I feel like I'm still there with them.
Yeah. I like both of the y'all are doing good stuff. Y'all are doing good things. And I can relate to a lot of that too, with Joni, and you're like kind of, you have that scheduled time with your husband. And, I mentioned I have coffee with my husband every morning, and we try to build in a date night once a week, the best that we can. And like a yearly trip away with just us, which, that can be difficult. And there's guilt in that I'm not taking my kids with me, but we need that. And we've come to the point where we realize that. So that's important. And then my sister lives in Philadelphia, so I can relate to you, Amanda. Like, I have to be really intentional about making those phone calls and setting up that time, because we don't get to see each other a lot. So if you want that relationship to continue, you have to really focus in and make sure that you're taking that time to do that and set aside time for that. I'm going to kind of take this a different direction, because I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like looking at these questions that Ashley's been asking us. Like, does your circle include people you trust? Do you spend time with these people? Do you have positive, rewarding relationships? And so I'm thinking back to younger Tiffany. And I think probably in college and high school, I would have thought saying that I was doing something well socially would be that I was invited to all the parties, all the things. I had all the friends. It was quantity, I think, is what I would have said back then. But now I'm finding, as time is so valuable, and wanting people in my inner circle that I can trust and I feel a connection with on a deeper level, that I probably would say I have very few true friends in my social circle, but that quality has gotten so much better. And so I think that's something that we don't think about, with social media, and like, how many friends do you have, and how many likes do you get, and how many all this do you get? It can feel intimidating. Like, if I make a post and I don't have 150 people that immediately like it or comment on it, does that mean I'm doing something wrong socially? But what I've come to find as I've gotten older and tried to mature is that you don't need a ton of people. You just need a few really solid people that you can trust, and they can trust you, and you have each other's back. And I think that's really valuable. And that's the one thing I think socially that I've been trying to do lately and do really well, is investing in those quality relationships.
Oh, I like that, Tiffany, very much. I'm like you. I have that small circle, but it's a good quality circle as well. And I like how you brought out, that the younger Tiffany, because we do, or the kids nowadays, if we don't have a bazillion people following us on social media, they're worried about that content. I really like how you brought that out.
This is really good for all of us, just to talk this through and think about those things, and not so much focus on what can I do better all the time.
Yeah.
Let's focus on what's going good. We're going to get to that. How can we improve? But I will share one thing that I'm doing well. I'll join the party.
Please do.
Okay. So, one thing that I do think that I do well, my youngest is very much a people person. She loves to be around me. Mornings can be tough. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but mornings can be tough. And one of the things that we do is, number one, I get up before everyone else and make sure that all of my things in my quiet time that I mentioned that I need in self-care, that I make sure that that's taken care of. So then by the time she gets up, then I'm not rushing around trying to get ready. So that when she is ready, when we have 10 minutes together, and I play whatever game she wants to play. If she wants to read, we read. If she wants to color, if she wants to play with Legos, it does not matter. But that is our together time. And I've seen lots of different things where you can name it something special. And I mean, to be quite honest, I'm just not that creative. So we call it together time, and she loves it. And that has really strengthened our relationship. And that is something that works really well for us. I know not everybody can make that time in the morning to do that, but that is a motivator for her to get moving in the mornings.
I love that. Do you realize like you're modeling social wellness for your child? And I think we forget that that's what we're doing, that they're constantly looking at us. And so by you doing that, she sees like this is valuable. You make time for people you care about. And
Yes.
so that's cool.
And that is one of the tips for improving social wellness is to be that role model. You are shaping your family's habits. They're watching you. And if you are a parent, your child is trying to figure out what they're supposed to do. And we've talked about guilt in this episode. We talked about guilt in the self-care episode. I mean, I don't have like a crystal ball, but I have a feeling that guilt is going to be a theme kind of throughout our podcast because it's something we're all trying to overcome. And if you can tell yourself that, I'm showing someone how to do it. And that is one thing when I take self-care, I've told my youngest, I'm doing this to show you that this is what you can do for yourself and that you need to do for yourself. So one tip for improving is just to realize that, yes, you are a role model. All of these tips come from the National Institute of Health. We will link that in the show notes. And as we're going through, I want you to be thinking about how you could improve. But think about one thing. We said one thing that we do well. We're going to say one thing that we can improve because we can go down that rabbit hole and say, well, I need to do this, 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 and this, and this. And that's overwhelming. So think about one and we'll go from there. One thing to think about is to make connections. How can you be involved with others in a way that meets your needs and you're still thinking about taking care of yourself? So if that X, Y, or Z doesn't feel good to you, then that's not helping you. So being around others can be good for your overall health when you're in a space that you can do that. Take care of yourself while caring for others. Oh, is that self-care again? I think so. Get active together. I think we talked about that in our self-care episode too. But being physically active together does help provide that an opportunity for connection, and you're getting physically healthy together. So that is affecting your physical wellness as well.
You know what that made me think, and I'm not because it was like, oh,
Jump
we
in.
do that.
Light bulbs are great.
So I may peer pressure a little bit, but we still do it, if that makes sense. So we have had kind of a going tradition that we do a 5K together. Just one a year. And that's all I'm asking. It's just one. And then I do kind of like pressure them, like, okay, sign up. But it's, and it's not that we're in it to win it. Well, okay, so my brother-in-law thinks that he has to be in it to win it. He's the one that's like running. Yeah, like, I got to do this. And of course we make fun of him for that, but that's him and that's okay. But I'm, in the back walking, which is cool too. But we do it together and we may not be at the same pace or, whatever, but we're there. And we've started, like, we take a picture every time, and so we have like all these pictures and like progressing and stuff. So I think that made me just think about that.
I like it. That's great. That's a wonderful example of being physically active together. We've already talked about being a role model. Bonding with your kids is another way to improve your social wellness. Life is challenging. We've talked about that several times. And children who build strong connections with their caregivers are better able to manage these challenges. And we'll talk about this in future episodes. So we're not going to go super in depth with all of these different suggestions, but just finding that time to build a connection, and whether it's playing a board game or going for a walk together.
I just want to kind of hit on that as well, because years ago when my kids was smaller and that, we started having like date afternoons or date days with each children just one-on-one.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because, they need that time just with you instead of everybody, Sometimes they just need an hour, 30 minutes just of your focus on them. It helps their mental health also, especially if you've not been getting along very well, just having that one-on-one time. Like I said, I used to do that with my children. Now they all just want to be together, because they're older. But that was one thing that we done whenever they was kids. Even my husband and I, he would have time with the kids himself where I went as too. So,
I think that's great, especially, when you have multiple children and they're so different. It's good to have those family activities for that social wellness and that bonding, but it may not always speak to all of them. And so,
Right.
I have 3 and they are vastly different personalities. And so to make those connections with each of them, I have to do different things. I have to meet them where they are. And so I love that, having that one-on-one time, because it is hard to share sometimes.
Yeah.
And there are certain things they probably want to discuss or do that the other ones don't want to discuss or do, or they don't want to discuss it in front of them. So that's
Well,
great.
my kids are completely different too, Tiffany, and they all, we don't have to do it once a week, just every so often, say, hey, let's go to the grocery store together, or hey, let's go to the movies together. Do something that they're interested in and not just what everybody's interested in, kind of make it special for them to have that one-on time. Even like my oldest son, I'll just tell you with he loves cars and he's got a little Miata. So me and him will just go take a drive together, and like I said, he's 23 and he still needs that time with mom. He still needs it with dad too. But, just, it doesn't have to be to go spend money. It can be little things like that, so just like I said, and it doesn't have to be every day, every week, just every once in a while, acknowledging them, in this fast pace of our lives.
And I think you have opportunities too in everyday life to do this, so it doesn't have to always. I think having a set aside time is great because then it's intentional, which again, that's my plug word. But I think too, like when I think about my kids, there are small spaces in the day that I can have that one-on-one time with them sometimes, and so whether it is when I drop my daughter off at dance, if it's just she and I in the car and we have that time alone, or picking my son up from basketball, or going for a walk on the farm with my little one, there are those spaces where it may be smaller increments of time, but there can be meaningful conversation. With my oldest, I drop the other 2, they all go to the same school, so we're the same building, but the 2 of them go into the elementary side, so I drop them off at one door, and I'm literally just circling around the front of the building. So we're talking like a span of maybe a couple minutes, but in that time, a lot of times, my oldest will really have a meaningful, deep conversation with me, and even when I get over to that door, he'll sit there and we'll talk for a couple minutes, and so it's 5 minutes or less, literally. But we know we have that time every day when I drop them off at school, that if there's something on his mind, something he didn't want to say in front of his siblings, something that just popped into his head, we can have that conversation, and that's really meaningful. And I think those are just those small spaces in time. And so I just don't want people to feel overwhelmed. Like if you're like, I don't have any time in my life, I have no space, where do I do this? And like you said, it doesn't have to be every day. It could be once a month that you have the set aside intentional time, but having those other spaces and utilizing those moments that we have.
Great. That's a very great, example of far as it doesn't have to be a long period of time. So,
yeah, because I was thinking that's a great example that you are mindful of that and you take that time, because you could be thinking about what I got to do at work today, or listening to a podcast, or hopefully
make time for that
ours.
too.
That's
though.
time. Yes,
make time
do
for the
make-
podcast.
But and so just finding those small increments of time in things you're already doing, I think that's a great way to think about it. All right, get us back on track.
Okay,
Yeah.
the final tip, which, like I said, we're going to discuss these more in detail, but build healthy relationships. And the key word there is healthy. And it's never too late to learn ways to improve your relationships. We will be talking lots about relationships once a month. Our podcast is dedicated solely to the topic of relationships, and we will throw in some parenting with that as well. But understanding what a healthy relationship looks like is that first step. So just keep that in mind, that we want to focus on the quality of our relationships and healthy relationships. It's important to set ourselves up for success. So rather than trying to do everything, because we can go through that list and I can be like, well, I could do this and this and this and this and this. No, I can't. I cannot do all the things at one time. So I want you to think about one suggestion or one thing that will work with your schedule and your personality that you can do to improve your social wellness this week. So we're going to share, and then listeners, I want you to be thinking about that. And some of our ideas for expressing that would be in our self-care episode, we talked about journaling, calling a friend, writing it down. If you write something down, then it helps you remember it. So post it somewhere where you can see it so that you will be more likely to follow through. So what's the one improvement we're going to make for our social wellness this week?
Ooh, that is a very good question. It's kind of a hard one to kind of think too, because you think of all the other things like you was talking about. I guess for myself is being more mindful of my circle, my close people, of checking on them, because sometimes the life of hustle and bustle, you're just like, oh, well, they're fine. I hadn't heard from them. But sometimes they're struggling too. So just reaching out to your circle of people, maybe your family, maybe your friends. But that's one thing that I can work on is reaching out to my circle of people.
Yeah, I can relate to that, Joni. And I think that was, that was part of my self-care too, is like working on that like social network.
Yeah.
So this is like perfect for me because, work in progress. But where you say like reaching out and like maybe they're okay, maybe they're not okay. I know a lot of times for me, I'll read a meme or I'll see something and it reminds me of somebody. And I'm like, oh, I should send that to them, or I should check on them, or I wonder if they're this or that. And a lot of times I will talk myself out of it. I'll be like, oh, they're busy. Oh, they don't, they're probably doing this. I don't want to bother them. And I think a lot of times like we can talk ourselves out of doing something that is good social wellness. It is good for us. It's good for them. And so for me, I want to, when those things pop in my head, when someone pops in my head, they're there for a reason. And I don't know what that is. I don't know what they're going through. But instead of second guessing myself, I'm going to make that connection. Even if it's sending that meme or sending that text or sending that email or making that quick call or just showing up at their house and saying, hey, you're on my mind. I just want to see how things are going, because we don't know that could be something very valuable to them. And I know it's going to be valuable to me. So I think that's going to be my thing.
I think mine that kind of hit, and I like listening to your all's words of wisdom, because as I mentioned before, I'm a mom of an 8-month-old. So the shaping your family's health habit. We are not the best at shaping our health habits right now, just because if you've ever been a parent of a newborn or been around, you're trying to adjust and it's time consuming and it's overwhelming. So you're not intentional about those relationships. So I think going forward, now that he's like almost a year old, how can we do that in a better way? And so even if we can't do it next week, at least maybe in this coming up year, thinking of ways to better do that.
Yeah, I think, I can relate to that. When my kids were little, it was survival mode.
That's
like
what,
we are just like, is everyone alive?
Yep.
Has everyone eaten something? Cool, we're good. And so you're about to get to that stage where you can start like thriving again.
Right. Yeah. And I think we're getting there. And that's, I think this is a good time for me to think about these things. And of course, the new year's coming up. We're in January. So yeah, that'll be mine.
These are all great suggestions and great things to do. Mine, I'm going to get pretty specific. Like, I'm going to call my grandmother this week. I used to talk to her all the time. So we're really close, and I have let myself be so caught up and so busy with all the things that are going on in this new stage of my life that I have kind of let that go. I'll still text her and I'll inquire about her and try to figure out what's going on. But it's been a while since we had like a full-on conversation. So that's what I'm going to do.
That's a good one. And that's one you can do right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just being mindful of everything too, because we say all these things, but just being mindful to do it, and making that time. I like how you said that, Tiffany, several times of being mindful and making sure that you set that time apart to do it. So
Yeah, and not beating ourselves up for what we've done in the past.
Right.
We can't change that. It's about progress, not perfection. I think we get so stuck on what I haven't done or how I haven't done or how I should have. We should ourselves terribly, and that just keeps us stuck. And knowing like what is in the past is in the past. Let's do better today.
And it's okay to fail.
yeah.
Like, so, you know,
Absolutely.
if it's April and it's like, oh, you know what? We haven't really been doing the best at this goal that we've been setting. Just being mindful and being like, you know what? It's okay. Let's just try it again. And maybe fixing it and finding a better way to do it.
We've talked about all kinds of social wellness tips and what social wellness is. We will link this information in the show notes. So we'll send you straight to the source, the National Institutes of Health, and have all of this information in our show notes. Next week, we will talk about balance. We brought that up in our self-care episode, so we're going to dive into balance next week. So we hope you can join us.
Thanks for listening to Life Simplified. We are family and consumer sciences agents with the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. Contact us at lifesimplifiedpodcast@gmail.com.